Hey guys, Abner Miranda here. Recently on my YouTube channel, someone asked me a question. I was doing some injured shooter stuff with the handgun, and he said, hey, can you show us that with the rifle? And I thought, all right, why not? What I'm doing here is I'm working behind a barrier, and I'm roughly at 67 yards from the target down there. When I was a cop, we were told, take your support hand, reach in the back of your pants, grab a hold of a handful of belt, and just squeeze. And they said your support hand is out of the equation. So without, and understand guys, this is institutional training. And without realizing it, there's no malice, I should clarify that. But it's a case of the instructor not knowing what they don't know. What they have subconsciously done to the student, to the cop, is they've said, if you get shot, that hand's out of the equation. If you take a hit in this arm, that whole arm is out of the equation. And what they've done is they've crippled that officer. They've taken 50% of their fighting ability out of the equation. I started getting into training with different training cadres, and we were being asked to hold bottles. They were duct taping our hands. And one of the things that I found is just put a racquetball in the person's hand. If you want to get ugly with it, yeah, duct tape it. And I mean like duct tape it from the wrist all the way up. Even with that hand taken almost completely out of the equation, I can still do this. I can still control this gun. Once again, guys, 67 yards. I can control this gun this way. Okay? All I did was hug the gun. I can't convey to you how strong this triangle is that I've created here. I have so much control over this weapon right now, like this. I can defend this weapon from a grab. I could smack you with this weapon if I needed to. With this muzzle device, I could also spear you with it. This is such a strong position of defense in fighting, and yet the hand is out of the equation completely. All I'm using is an elbow. But if I've been instructed to reach down the back of my pants and grab a handful of belt, I can't even do this. Now I have to depend on just the barrier. I'm driving forward. So if my hand is back here, still a doable thing, but what did I teach the student? You're dependent on what? You're dependent on an object in the environment for your support. Okay, great point to, great position to cover the other part. All right, when you're talking about reloads, when you're talking about giving the student the ability to use something, you tell them you have to hold this racquetball throughout the entire drill. That's the only instruction you're given. You say you must hold this racquetball in whatever hand we tell you throughout the entire drill, because remember, you can change things. This isn't a linear drill where it's only a right side injury if they're a lefty. Or I'm sorry, it's only a support side injury, or it's only a dominant side injury. At any time in the drill, we can change things up on you. So let's say that I'm shooting. In fact, one of the things that is done is you're shooting and the instructor comes over and says, you've taken a hit in that arm, got to hold this racquetball. All right, so now you've got the racquetball. You can still drive forward into that barrier. You can still create tension with the rifle. Now the weapon is empty. From this position, the reason I have these two notches here in this barrier is so that I can drive the gun forward. So that I'm learning, I'm teaching, I'm making sure that anyone who's on this range training with me understands that you work from an eyes up position whenever possible. Typically speaking, if you get a click, or if your weapon goes empty, you should transition to your sidearm. At 67 yards, is it impossible? No, not really. It's not an impossible shot. It's just a very difficult shot with a handgun. So at this distance, make distance, take off. But since we're working in this world, okay, so the guy fires a shot, boom. So now he's got to get his long gun up. He drives his long gun into the barrier. He hits that mag catch, and he has to access his other mag. This is where the instruction of you have to hold that racquetball comes from. The person's holding the racquetball, okay? All the instruction was you must retain this racquetball throughout the entire drill. Well, check it out. They're holding the racquetball, aren't they? As instructors, we try to make things harder than they actually have to be, when in reality all we have to do is just be creative and allow the student to figure out the rest. So mag in, bolt forward, back in the fight. All right, so let's say that we have a malfunction. Okay, we've created a malfunction in the student's gun. You can do this with a stick. You can do this by jamming a mag in. Anything that stops this weapon from cycling properly will cause a malfunction. So at this point, the student has to clear this malfunction from behind cover using a position of support. By the way, guys, this simulates a car bumper, it simulates a tire, it simulates anything that the student can, that the operator can drive the weapon into, because remember, eyes up, eyes up, eyes up. I'm driven in, eject my mag. Luckily, the mag comes loose. I don't want to drop this mag, because remember, at any moment's notice, my instructor could suddenly tell me, move, 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 and I have to move. All right, so I want to make sure that I retain that mag whenever possible. So now I cycle the weapon. Cycle the weapon again. Yeah, there's a live round that came out. Who cares? Mag goes in. Seat the mag. Tug. All right, you know what? Let's do the mother of all malfunctions, which is bolt override. Bolt override. Casing has managed to work its way up into the cavity of your charging handle, into that little cutout, and it gets wedged up in there. Okay, bolt override. There's a casing up inside this chamber. Let's see if this camera picks it up. I'm sorry. There's a casing up inside of the inside this space, and it's actually stuck in that cutout in the charging handle. And if you spend a lot of time working with your gun, you know what this is, because you're not getting the proper cycle that you normally would be getting. So now you have to lock the weapon to the rear. Problem is, you have an injured hand. Roll it over the bottom of the ping pong paddle, the bolt catch. Drop your mag, and the casing just drops free. All you have to do is take pressure off of that bolt, slide the charging handle forward, and the round falls free. That's actually a relatively easy malfunction to fix. Another malfunction is going to be a casing, and yes, I just put casing. I know some of you are going to have a kitten, because I dropped the fired casing into my chamber. All right. Drop the casing in the chamber. Got one round in there. Stick the, there we go. When I try to eject this one, and this is a malfunction that occurs when, for some reason, if your extractor is kind of getting fatigued and it's just not coming off the way it needs to. I'm sorry, stripping casings out the way it needs to. It tends to stick a little bit. So what you've got here is a fired round in the chamber that doesn't want to come out. You've got the next round trying to go up in there, so if you eject your mag, it's not going anywhere, it's stuck in there. When you tug on it, even though you hit that, it's still seated. You have to physically extract this mag. So remember, if you've got this, or even if you've got this, if you got this, you got a gobload of power. Extract that mag. Rack, rack, rack. Next mag. Hook into the trigger guard. Push up, pull. Charging handle. I think that was all of them. I think that's every malfunction. To me, working malfunctions with the long gun almost is easier than working malfunctions with the handgun, because I have so much more to hang on to here than with a handgun. So that's it, guys. If you have barriers, this is where you want to be working malfunctions. If you have the ability to do this with a friend absolutely do this with a friend. Your friend can really get in there with you and screw with you, which, yeah, is what you want. You want your friends messing with the, with your weapon, with the support equipment. You want to have a fight that in the training environment that has been created to be such a nightmare that if you actually ever get into a real gunfight, it's like bing, 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 and you're done. Because you train for the absolute worst thing that could ever happen right here. I've had the privilege of training with Larry Vickers, Chase Jenkins, Will Petty, Frank Proctor, Ken Hackathorn. I've trained with so many people in the industry and had the privilege of having been shown how to do the same thing multiple times over by all these different people. And then of course coming out here on the range and just putting the work in and figuring out all these things, which is why this barrier has been made the way it's been made. I created specific areas for you to drive your gun into. This is for a standing position, and this one is for the kneeling position. By design. In my garage, realized I better add this and I better add that. Not an afterthought, glued and screwed in place. Because when a student comes out here, I want them to have a barrier they can push against. I want them to have areas on the barrier that they can work with to simulate the window trim of a vehicle, the brake caliper of a car to drive into to keep that gun up, because you fix your weapon, you fight with your weapons, eyes up, eyes up, eyes up. Guys, I can't stress that enough. You have to always be tracking what that bad guy is doing in relation to what you're doing, even when you're not busy sending rounds downrange. Oh, you know what? One last thing. In closing, see that right there? Don't be that guy. See how it's lopsided? Don't be that guy. This round, don't leave it where some student can find it and go, oh gosh, free ammo. Feed it to their gun and have a malfunction. Remember, if they do something dumb with their gun and they hurt the person beside you, or beside them, or you for that matter, yeah, your waiver form covers you. But why borrow trouble when you can pitch that round off into the woods and avoid it? It's 30 rounds. It's 30 cents. Big deal. As always, I thank you guys for watching. God bless you all. Get those guns out in practice. Have a good one.